Erling Haaland scored twice to send Norway into the World Cup knockout rounds on Monday night. He walked off the pitch with 4 goals in 2 games, the Golden Boot race in his sights, and a nation of 5 million people behind him at their first World Cup in 28 years. Then a Fox Sports reporter asked him about France, about Mbappe, about the biggest game of his life. And Haaland said this: "Honestly, I don't care too much. We're through. We managed to get through, which is incredible. I couldn't care too much about that game now. They're probably going to win against us. They're probably going to win the whole tournament." The man with 4 World Cup goals just publicly surrendered before playing. And tomorrow, in Boston, Kylian Mbappe is waiting for him. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what Haaland's words actually mean. Genuine humility, or the most calculated piece of psychological warfare anyone has pulled at this tournament. And you'll understand why the difference between winning and losing tomorrow isn't just pride or group position. It may decide who gets a realistic path to the World Cup final. Erling Haaland had just finished the job. 2 goals against Senegal, 4 in 2 games, and Norway, after 28 years of waiting, were back in the knockout rounds. The numbers alone should have made him untouchable. 59 goals in 52 caps. A streak that carried a nation to the edge of something unthinkable. But when the microphones found him, Haaland didn't reach for the usual script. He didn't talk about destiny or pride. Instead, he shrugged it all off. "I don't care. We are through. They're probably going to win against us. They're probably going to win the whole tournament." That was the line. Not a rallying cry, not a warning to France, not even a hint of a challenge to Kylian Mbappe, just a public admission that Norway's journey might end tomorrow, and that was fine by him. For a striker who had just bulldozed through the group stage, it sounded almost like surrender. The man with the golden boot in his sights, the man who had dragged Norway out of the wilderness, now telling the world he didn't care too much about what comes next. Was it humility? Was it a pressure valve, a shield, a chess move? Or was it the sound of a superstar lowering the lights before the biggest game of his career? In one breath, Haaland handed France the favorite's crown and left everyone else guessing, did he just give up, or is this the smartest mind game of the tournament? The easy narrative says tomorrow's match is a dead rubber. Both Norway and France are already through, so why care? But the bracket tells a different story. One that every coach, player, and analyst has circled in red. This final group game in Boston is the fork in the road, and each path leads to a future that could not be more different. Win Group 1, and the so-called reward is Sweden in the round of 32. Survive that, and Germany waits in the next round. Then it's either Morocco or the Netherlands, and after that, Spain. It's a gauntlet, but it's a gauntlet with air holes. Dangerous, yes, but navigable for a team with momentum and belief. But finish second, and the tournament turns brutal. The runner-up in Group 1 is handed Ivory Coast first. Then comes Brazil, then England, and then Argentina, all before the final. That's not a bracket. That is a gauntlet. 3 consecutive rounds against Brazil, England, and Argentina. Each a heavyweight. Each a team built to win this entire tournament. One slip, one moment of hesitation, and the journey ends. So the idea that tomorrow is meaningless collapses under the weight of the bracket itself. This isn't just about pride or headlines. It's about survival. The difference between first and second is the difference between a marathon and a minefield. And every player on that pitch knows it. 16 goals in his last 8 games for Norway. That's 2 every time he pulls on the shirt. A number that belongs to a player who expects to decide matches, not one searching for excuses. Haaland's record is not the mark of a man shrinking from the moment. It's the record of a forward who knows exactly what pressure feels like and has made a habit of crushing it. So when Haaland shrugs and says France will probably win, maybe he isn't waving a white flag. Maybe he's building a wall around his team, shielding them from the weight of history and expectation. The logic is ruthless. If Norway loses, the world shrugs. He already said it would happen. But if Norway wins, the story explodes. From written off to giant killers in 90 minutes. Haaland's words transform the narrative into a win-win. All the pressure slides onto France. All the freedom shifts to Norway. In a tournament where every slip is magnified, that's not surrender, it might be the sharpest move on the board. Kylian Mbappe, when asked about the looming showdown with Haaland, barely blinked. Facing Haaland, I'm not thinking about him right now. Maybe they're thinking about us, but I am only thinking about Iraq. Where Haaland shrugged and handed France the role of favorites, Mbappe dismissed the entire conversation. One star downplayed the opponent, the other erased the rivalry from his mind. Both strikers, with 4 goals each and the world watching, performed indifference in their own way. Haaland's words offered an open door, let the pressure drift to Paris. Mbappe's response slammed it shut, don't even bring up the name. But the act is just that, an act. The bracket is a minefield, the prize is survival, and the real stakes can't be hidden behind a poker face. 2 of the best strikers alive, both pretending not to care, both with everything to lose. The tension lives in the silence between their words. The numbers strip away all the guesswork. Haaland brings 59 goals from 52 appearances for Norway, an absurd ratio at any level, let alone for a country that spent nearly 3 decades outside the knockout rounds. Yet on the other side of the pitch stands Kylian Mbappe, a man who has turned the World Cup into his own personal stage. 16 goals in 16 World Cup games. Only Messi and Klose have ever scored more, and Mbappe is still just 27. In this tournament, both strikers sit on 4 goals, but Messi leads the Golden Boot race with 5, his name still looming over every scoring chart. When it comes to their personal rivalry, the evidence is just as clear. 4 times their clubs have collided in Europe's biggest competitions, and 3 times Mbappe's side has walked away with the win. Haaland has scored, yes, 5 times in those meetings, but the victories belong to the Frenchman's camp. The psychological balance tilts with every stat. Haaland's firepower, Mbappe's World Cup pedigree, the numbers stacking up behind France. On paper, France are the favorites. On paper, the edge is Mbappe's. But football doesn't always care about paper. The question is whether Haaland's words are a shield, a trap, or the truth. Didier Deschamps left the French camp just 3 days before the Norway match, boarding a flight home after the death of his mother. The French Football Federation handed the reins to assistant coach Guy Stéphane, who would guide the squad for a single game while Deschamps attended the funeral. For a team built on routine and the steady hand of a manager who has led them to 2 World Cup finals and a title, the sudden absence was more than a headline. It was a disruption to the rhythm France has relied on for over a decade. The players spoke of unity and experience, of honoring their coach in his absence. But football is not always rational. Even for a side as deep and battle-tested as France, the question lingered. Can a team so used to Deschamps' voice adjust on the fly? Or will the smallest emotional tremor open the door for chaos in a match that means everything? On the field, every theory gets stripped for parts. Norway's 7 goals in 2 games are more than numbers. They're a promise to attack, a risk that cuts both ways. But France has only allowed 1 goal all tournament, anchored by Saliba and Konate, a defensive pairing built for these moments. Norway's challenge is simple in concept, brutal in practice. Break through a wall that hasn't cracked, knowing that the moment they overcommit, Mbappe is waiting to turn defense into a sprint and a finish. Each side brings its own equation. Norway's forward surge, France's counterpunch, bracket futures hanging in the balance. The absence of Deschamps lingers, a silent variable in France's structure. The Golden Boot race, the manager's seat, the bracket fork, every pre-match word, everything now collapses into 90 minutes, where the only thing that matters is what happens next. Tomorrow, one quote collides with the weight of a nation's hope. Is Haaland surrendering or playing the smartest psychological game on football's biggest stage? Can Norway defy the odds and shatter the bracket gauntlet? Drop your verdict below and subscribe for more battles behind the headlines.